Okay, here we are in Dungannon. We're going to trace the railway line from Dungannon to Cookstown. Starting off here in Dungannon, Railway Park, the site of the old train station. I talk about this station in a bit more detail in my other video there. I think it was where I traced the Dungannon to Omagh Railway. I'm going to take a slightly different route today. Going back up to the satellite view. I hate to keep going on about this tunnel, but the tunnel in Dungannon fascinates me, and I'm dying to know exactly where the entrance to the tunnel was. I'm wondering, was it here? Black Lane? Or did it come through here? This looks like a cutting, you see. So I'm guessing the trains would have come through here. But where exactly did the trains come is what I'm trying to figure out. Did they come through what is now... This looks like a wall that's been added on later, and some very rough and ready gates. So I'm wondering, did the trains used to come through here, cross a level crossing, or was there some... I don't see much evidence of grade separation. I don't see the stumps of an old bridge or anything. So I would really love to know more about this tunnel. I hear the entrance to the tunnel has been bricked up, and it was inspected recently, and it was found to be in pretty good condition because nothing was ever built on top of it. But anyway, let's follow the old line. So the old line goes up through what is now a park, and we get to the split. Eventually we get to the split. There's the split. So to turn left, that is the line to Omagh. To turn right, that is the line to Cookstown. And as I mentioned in my other video where I traced the Omagh line, you get this big housing development in the way of the old Omagh line. And one thing I suggested for reopening the line to Omagh was somehow making the turn here and getting around this housing development, but I'm not sure how feasible that is. I'm not sure what the minimum turning radius is for trains on the Irish gauge. I don't know if it would be possible to make that turn, but another option might be to cross over here and follow a little bit of the Cookstown line and then make your left turn and somehow pick up the line to Omagh at a later stage. But there's a golf club in the way, so there's no easy solution to this really, getting a line open to Omagh through this particular piece of Dungannon. But anyway, let's keep following the line to Cookstown. That's what we're here to talk about today. Crossover point here, so the trains would have come through. I'm guessing there was grade separation here, judging by all this embankment. Could there have been a bridge here? I don't see much evidence left of a bridge. And we'll keep on going north. We're following the lines of hedges through the landscape, trying to pick up old clues as to where the line may have gone. I think the line went up along what is now this private access road. There's an industrial facility there. Trains would have crossed over the road at this point somewhere. Yeah, these look like the walls of an old bridge, so I'm guessing there was a cutting here that's been filled in subsequently. Trains would have gone underneath the road at this point and up through what is now this, looks like an engineering firm. A lot of engineering in County Tyrone apparently. Someone once told me there's more engineering in County Tyrone than there is in the rest of Ireland combined. RM Dungannon, I'm not sure what they do. Mechanical engineer, there you go. Very common around Dungannon, Power Screen and companies like that. So getting this line reopened, this could be a bit tricky here. We might have to skirt around this somehow. Don't know if that's the kind of business that could relocate very easily. And then the railway line disappears somewhat here through the landscape. I'm not sure where it disappears to, so I'm going to have to cheat a little bit and look at my little tool here. This is the Rail Map Online tool. It shows historic rail lines superimposed on modern maps. So it turned left through what is now RM Dungannon. Okay, so the line used to go... Yeah, the line would have gone up here. And then what? Picked up the A45, so I'm guessing part of this A45 road was built on top of the tracks. So there's another challenge for getting the line reopened. Coalisland Road. Notice the very gentle turn, very gentle curve here on this road. That gentle curve was put in for the benefit of trains, steam trains, many years ago. So I don't know if the old right-of-way runs exactly underneath the road or beside it. We'll take a look at it here in a street view. Did the trains run down here, beside the road, or on top of the road? It's a little hard to tell. Let's press on. We can follow it, just about see a line here. That's evidence of a railway, and then it disappears again. Crossed over Killymeal Road. Killymeal Road, crossed over here, and then what did it do? South a little bit to Eden Dark Road. Crossed over about here. God, there is really nothing left of it. So it crossed over to around this point. I mean, was there a tunnel underneath here that I'm not aware of or something? It looks like it's quite hilly, this country. Not much evidence of a railway crossing there. And there you go, we pick it up here. So the trains would have crossed here somehow and went out into these fields. Yeah, we're quite high off the road here. This is definitely grade separated. So let me know if there's a tunnel or something there. Very curious about that. So we can see the tracks and what's left of them crossing over here. Let's take a look at this crossover point. See, is there anything left of it? Not a whole lot. Usually there's some evidence of a bridge. You know, you usually see the old walls of a bridge and the cutting underneath is partly filled in. Not seeing a whole lot here. It's a shame how these railways were just obliterated. Keep following the landscape features. Someone's built a house very close to the tracks or on top of it. This looks okay. I think we're getting into Coalisland here, and the satellite photo was taken probably a bit sooner than the street view photo, because I think there was a housing development going in there at the time when the street view photo was taken. That photo was taken, image capture, May 2016. So I'm sure those houses are complete by now. So there's probably a whole housing development on top of this. So getting the railway line reopened into Coalisland, probably not feasible to follow the exact same route, but there is still a bit of open country here on this side. And again, I have to go back to my mapping tool. Okay, so it looks like tracks hugged very close to Bush Road, crossed over this A45, crossed over here. There would have been a crossover point at this point. Oh, there's a cool little arch bridge over the river. That's nice. Yeah, the trains would have crossed over here. There must have been great separation then. Look at the height of this. But where? Where did the trains go? So we're looking, I think, we're looking in the direction of the, where the trains went north to Cookstown, so it must have gone underneath here. Very tricky to follow this line. And there's a bit of a quarry up here in Coalisland. Coalisland, I believe, was the site of the only coal mine in Ulster ever. So the line skirted around the side of this quarry and it's not filled in with water. And there was a little branch that went off into this little industrial area here, crossed over Derry Road, so let's follow that. So I see a row of little homes here lined up with nearly exactly where the tracks were, crossed over here. So yeah, oh, very clearly there's where the trains would have passed underneath. Curious about what these little homes are. They look almost temporary. Almost prefabricated. So if you know anything about what this is all about, please let me know. Do people live in there? Or some sort of housing development? Not familiar with that type of design of housing. Okay. And yeah, the line continued and a cutting crossed over again here. This is all developed private homes built on top of the old tracks. This drives me nuts. This is where the trains would have crossed over. Bit of a pedestrian crossing here now. Not much evidence of a railway though. Seems to be more development here. Anything to see at ground level? Probably not. Okay. Let me go back to my map tool just to make sure I'm not getting off the beaten track. Yeah, see the little branch here that went off down to, I think there's a power company there. There might have been, I think there was an old mill down here. This was because you got to remember in those days a lot of railways were built primarily for the movement of goods rather than passengers. So there was a branch that went down roughly here. I think this is where the old mill was, and there are still some remains of it that I think we can just about see from here. So there were two branches that came down here. Yeah. So there was a short one that came down to here and another one that came slightly farther down to here. And you can just about see that mill, I think, from the road. Yeah, you can see the chimney. Looks like quite an old building. It doesn't see, from the satellite view, it doesn't look like it's in a very good state of repair, which is a shame. This chimney is a piece of history. I really hope that if this building can't be saved, at least the chimney should be. Part of the industrial heritage of the place. I wish people would show more respect for that type of history. It's very important. Okay, let's keep following the railway. Looking for linear landscape features. There's more development on top of it. Farm buildings built on top of the tracks. I don't get it. What is so attractive about it? The path of a former railway that people feel the need to build houses on it. Does it make a good foundation or something? What is it? A crossover point here. Is there anything to see? Oh yes, there's the abutments of an old railway bridge. Definitely grade separated then. Imagine steam trains thundering over here. Looks like someone's built a house pretty close to it as well. Yep. Built a house right on top of it. Let's keep following the hedges. Sometimes it helps to zoom out actually. See the landscape features more clearly. I'm not going to look at every road crossing point either. And again the line disappears. Okay, let's go back to my mapping tool. B250. So the line curved to the left. There it is again. We can pick it up here. So this looks like the abutments of an old railway bridge. I wonder, was there a viaduct? Could there have been a viaduct here that was carelessly demolished? Let's press on up through the fields. A crossover point here. Is there anything to see? Yep, there's the old walls. Grade separation is still there. That's definitely a cutting. I wonder how many people drive over this thing thinking they're driving over a river. Little do they know they're driving over an old railway. That crossover point here. Well, I wonder, is this a station? That looks like an old station building, doesn't it? The old platforms. Where are we here? Is this Stewartstown? Yeah, we're on the outside of Stewartstown. That must have been Stewartstown station then. Let's see what the mapping tool says. Let me put the maps, put the stations on. Yep, there it is, Stewartstown station. Fantastic. Okay, let's take a look at that again, see how close we can get to it. This looks like a well-maintained building, actually. Probably a private home now, judging by the fact there's a TV aerial on top. Somebody living in there. Okay, let's press on. And the railway crossed over here. And then what? Hug the side of the road. And that was it. There's a really interesting bit of a feature here. Yeah, we're looking in the direction of where the trains used to go. So they ran alongside, so a little road here, and the trains would have run right alongside it. So I'm guessing the trains would have been above the road. And there must have been grade separation here. The walls seem to have been rearranged. So it looks like the bridge was dismantled and then rearranged into these walls. I suppose at least some of the history's been preserved. Reconstituted form, like reconstituted chicken, isn't it? It's really hard to trace this line here. Crosses over Shanky Road. Crosses over, that's Shanky Road, I think. And then what? Yeah, then it goes up north. Goes up here, we're following these hedges. We pick it up again through the fields. Go through open countryside here, which lends some hope to the idea of getting these lines reopened. If you're going through open countryside, not too many obstacles in your way. Crosses over Shanky Road again. I think that's it. Again, you're looking for these long linear landscape features. Oh, look at this, the cutting still in place. The old bridge still intact. I wonder if you can walk underneath it. Can you hike underneath that, or has it been filled in? Let's keep going. Another crossover point here. Is there anything to see? Yep, bridge still intact, grade separation still intact. Some houses close to it, but at least they're not on top of the tracks. Crossover point here. Let's take a quick look. Looks like the railway looks like it went over the top of this road, grade separated. So there's the abutments of the old bridge. It'd be great if these could be incorporated back into a reopened railway. Some of the original structure could be recycled. Crosses over a river here. Can't really see very clearly. I don't see I have a clear line of sight on here to see what kind of bridge they had over the river. And we're getting into the outskirts of Cookstown here, I think. So the line curved to the left through what is now this golf course. Crossed over here. There's a food processing plant in place there at the minute, but I'm guessing the trains went underneath the road at this point. When I see old walls like this, I assume there was a cutting that went underneath. This looks like an old bridge rather than a level crossing. And I will talk a little more about how to get the line reopened, but for now let's focus on tracing the original line. I believe it went through the middle of what is now this food processing plant, up through these hedges. Crossover point here, let's take a quick look at that. Yeah, grade separation still in place. There's the old cutting. So I don't think it's feasible to close down that food processing plant to make way for a railway, but there's plenty of open country beside it that we could use. So we won't be able to recycle this crossing point again. But you can't save them all, can you? And then the tracks curved to the left and went into here. And we're in for a treat here. Let's take a look at the street view. And it says there in big letters, Great Northern Railway. This arch, look at it. Now what do you notice about this arch? It's held together by rivets. That's a sign of something really old. Large rivets like that used to hold sheets of metal together. That was made obsolete by welding. We weld metal together now, but back in the 19th century and in the early 20th century, when ships like the Titanic were being built, and even the Queen Mary, in the 1930s, everything was held together by rivets. So this tells me that this arch is original, and from the research I've done, I believe it is original to the old station. And speaking of the station, there it is. There's the old station building. Currently occupied, by all accounts, by the Cookstown Hockey Club, which I think is great, because it means the building is occupied, people are still using it, they're still taking good care of it. And it looks like they've done a very nice job of taking care of it. So there's a piece of history there. Absolutely looks like a train station. Fantastic. Now, let's take a look at the mapping tool and take a look at the railway line, or lines, that went into Cookstown. Zoom out a little. Okay, so you had two railway lines meeting here. So the blue line coming up from the south, that was the Great Northern Line, and the green line coming in from the north from Randallstown was the Northern Counties Committee line. So there were actually two stations here in Cookstown. So the Great Northern Station is the one we're looking at now, occupied by the hockey club. Let's go down the street a little to this building, which is currently a Chinese restaurant. This was the old Northern Counties Committee railway station. And interestingly enough, there was provision made for the movement of cargo between these two stations. There was like a joint platform, I think, they could use for shipping cargo from one to the other. But there was no through arrangements for passengers. So if you were changing at Cookstown, you were coming up from Dungannon and you want to go up to somewhere like Antrim, you had to arrive at this station and then walk across into this terminal building to get the NCC line. Which strikes us as weird today. That's not how we would do it. We would just have one station in the town and you'd walk across the platforms. But back in those days, you know, these railway companies were fully private commercial enterprises, and they competed against one another. I hope this hasn't been too developed in here. Let's see how far in we can get, what we can see. Last time I looked at this, I was able to get a glimpse of the old awnings over the top of the old platform. There's only so much you can see here from the street view. I'd need to really get... Yeah, there it is. You can see the cover over the top of the old platforms. That's fantastic that all this is still intact. So there you have it. Cookstown train stations, two of them. And there's the old line that went up to Randallstown and go up through the cutting. We'll talk about that in a separate video. But for now, if we're going to talk about getting this line reopened, then I think one of the challenges you would face would be getting around this food processing plant. I'd have to take a slightly different route up through the country, make the turn left, which we should be able to do. It looks like we've got a reasonably clear path in here. I would nearly say all the way into the old train station. Really is remarkable how much of this is still intact and how much of a clear path we have to the station. And there's another building in there as well. I think it's one of the old sheds. I don't know if we can see it from here. Yeah, this one. Yeah, there it is. See if we can get a better view of it. That old shed, as you can probably tell from the brickwork, is original. So there would have been old steam engines would have been worked on in there, if you can believe that. Fantastic railway heritage. Not quite sure what's being used, what this is being used for now. And all sorts of little old buildings beside it, with the old brickwork, the old style, the old architecture, all still intact. It looks like it's being used for some industrial use there. But I hope they're taking good care of it. You know, this ought to be a listed building too. Those two station buildings, I think, are both listed buildings. And I'm glad that there's a live business in one of them and a hockey club in the other, taking good care of it. So long may that continue. But look at all this open space out here in the countryside. There's a pretty clear path there for any reopened railway line coming in. And if that station was to reopen, look how close it is to the main street in Cookstown. It's a very short walk from the main street. So you could travel easily between Dungannon and Cookstown by train. Used to be able to do that. Can't do it anymore. Sometimes we take these steps backwards. But all is not lost. You know, most of the right-of-way seems to be clear. There's a few little challenges there, a few little houses built on top of the tracks. I'm sure we could come to some arrangement. But it would be handy if we could travel between Cookstown, Stewartstown, Coalisland and Dungannon by train. I think that would take quite a bit of traffic off the roads. I used to work around this area too, so it was quite a busy little part of the world back then. I remember people commuting between Dungannon and Cookstown. I used to pick up hitchhikers in the morning on the way up to Cookstown. And there's quite a lot of traffic on the road in those days, and I'm sure it's even more busy now. That was over 20 years ago. So the case for opening railway lines is a slam dunk, in my opinion, from the point of view of reducing congestion, reducing emissions, reducing pollution, reducing injuries and deaths on the roads as well. The only way you're going to reduce deaths on the road is reduce the number of people making car journeys. So yeah, definitely plenty of potential there for getting those stations open in Dungannon and Cookstown and connecting them. Coalisland will be a bit of a challenge, but this is pretty exciting when you see how close this station in Coalisland is to the town centre and how little development there is between the station and the open country, where you could easily get a new line reopened and connect up to the old route. So it should be possible even to get around this golf course. You know, you shouldn't have to disturb too much of that. Definitely an achievable goal.